Once you've finished your project and you've laid up your quilt, you do have an option to either quilt by hand or by machine, and in this video I'm going to give you my tips on how to machine quilt. Now the first type of machine quilting we're going to talk about is using a walking foot or a dual feed foot. The dual feed foot allows the thickness of the wadding and the fabric top and the backing fabric to feed evenly through the machine and give you nice even stitches. You actually, on this one, keep the feed dogs up, which are the teeth here. These are the feed dogs, or the teeth. These remain in the upward position, and the combination of those and the walking foot will create a lovely quilting stitch. Now, to fit this on, you need to take off what's called the ankle of the sewing machine, and that's the foot that normally holds all of your feet on. And then when you look at the walking foot, whilst they're all slightly different with the manufacturer, they're fundamentally the same. You have what I think looks like a lobster claw. That's going to hug the screw where the needle is. And then this part here will go onto the screw where the ankle went. So I'm going to quickly pop that on. When you're putting it on, just make sure that it is in the centre of the foot. It's all nice and straight, and then with the screwdriver that is supplied with your sewing machine, just screw it, not overly tight, because if you do it overly tight, what will happen is it'll knock this off to an angle and you will not get a nice finish. And if I lock that in, it would help. So you will have full instructions how to put on the walking foot on your individual machines in the manual. So I do recommend that you just have a little look. So once you think it's finger tight, you just do another couple of turns, and we want it so it's firmly on, but it's not over tight. Now for quilting, you can use a selection of needles. The quilting needles come in two sizes, and they are a 75 or a 90. I would recommend, if you're using, this is the 277 cotton wadding, which is the 100% Vlieseline cotton wadding. I have 2 layers of cotton fabric. I would use a 90 quilting needle. If you're wanting to use a universal needle, then use an 80 or a 90. The joy of using a quilting needle is a quilting needle is slightly sharper than a universal needle. So before you start quilting, you want to make sure that all your threads are neat. And I like to bring my thread, my bottom thread, to the top, and then I can hand sew that in later on. The easiest way to do that is to lower the presser foot either manually at the back, or if your machine allows it, on the front of the machine. You then lower the needle. And again, if you need to do this manually, just simply rotate the hand wheel towards you. So the needle is now in the down position. And if you can see, I'm holding the top thread in my hand. I'm now going to leave the foot in the down position, but raise the needle, and at the same time, pull this top thread. And can you see the bottom thread has come to the top? And either use your fingers, or if you can't grab it, you could use a pair of tweezers. Bring the threads up together. Then pop the threads behind the machine, and what you need to do now is to lower the needle into the place where the threads came up. Now later on you'll be able to get a hand needle and just bury those threads in between the top layer of the fabric and the wadding. We're now ready to start quilting. You can decide whether you want to mark a design onto the top of your quilt, and you can either do that by using a pencil, a pen, or a crease marker. Your stitch length, you need to increase the stitch length, and I would advise increasing the stitch length to at least 3, because the needle has to go down through the top layer of fabric, through your wadding, through your backing, and bring it up. And it's really just to see that the stitches are a nice size and they are pleasing to the eye. You may want to increase them even more if your thread is slightly thicker than the thread I'm using at the moment. I have moved the needle to the far right, and I'm actually going to use the walking foot as a guide, and I'm just going to come down this channel here, and we'll just start sewing. And if you want to, you could also use quilting gloves. The quilting gloves allow you to have a nice grip on your fabrics, and they're particularly useful if you are quilting a large quilt. It's not a race, just take your time. But I want to take you down to this line because I want to show you what I do at the end. So can you see that the fabric is evenly feeding through the machine? And I'm going to stop at this junction here and I just get close to it. Now, this particular machine has an automatic thread cutter. The temptation is to hit that. But if you do that, then you're going to be left with no thread or a very short thread on the top and the bottom. So my little tip is using your hand wheel on the right hand side of your machine, rotate it towards you and raise the needle to the highest position. Then you can raise the foot either manually or using the button on the front of the machine. And then what I do is I just pull out this part here. So I've got some thread that I can use a hand needle to bury later on. And then I will do exactly the same with the bottom bobbin thread, like that. And what I'll be able to do now is to thread this one with a hand needle and bury it, and do exactly the same for the bottom thread, which is there. Another option when you are machine quilting is that you could use a free motion quilting foot. It's sometimes known as a darning foot. There's two different types. One has a closed area, but I personally prefer the horseshoe if you have an option. And that's quite simply because you can see where you're stitching. What I'm going to show you is how to bring up the threads again, because I don't want any of the knots or loose threads on the back. So if you hold the thread, it's exactly the same technique as for the walking foot. Lower your presser foot. Lower your needle either by rotating the hand wheel towards you or alternatively using the button on your machine. Keep hold of the thread in your left hand, and then as you raise the needle, just pull and you can see the bottom thread has now come to the top. We can get hold of both of these threads and you just need to possibly raise the presser foot, because what you're wanting to achieve is for your needle to go in exactly the same hole that the threads came up. Once we've done that, just pop the thread to the back of your work, lower your presser foot, and you're ready to start sewing. Now there's a couple of things that you need to do on your sewing machine. The first is that you need to lower the feed dogs, which are the teeth. And these are underneath here. Because the feed dogs are lowered, what that means is that you are in control of how big or how small the stitches are. And you need to get a relationship between the speed of the machine and the movement of your hands. And what I would suggest is if you have a speed control on your machine, set it to the middle setting, the medium setting, and put your foot straight to the floor if you're using the foot pedal. When you're a beginner, if you have the option of having a stop and start button on the front of your machine, use that, because it will get you up to speed straight away. You can do a couple of stitches and then it's just a matter of taking it for a walk. Now the design that you're using is entirely up to you. Start off with loops. When I'm first starting free motion quilting, I encourage people to write their names. You don't have to go fast, just take it as fast or as slow as you like, and you're just going to create a design. It's effectively like doodling with a pencil, and quite often just to get that sensation of free motion quilting, just decide where you want to go with your fingers and then just carry on. As you can see, Vlieseline has a wide range of products, each with different properties and benefits for your projects. You can view the whole range on the Vlieseline website, where you can download the brochure, which has detailed information on all of the products across our 4 categories. You can also join the conversation with us on our Facebook page, Creative Community Group and Instagram.